probably the most popular level 7, rank 7 archetype that we have in the game is Odd Eyes. I take that back. We got Dark Magician, but we obviously have to mention some other cards, whether it be Grand Radiance, Psi Impulse, Dark Simorgh, and some of these other cards like the World Legacy, World Secret archetype, sub-archetype that basically can allow you to lock out your opponent if you're mixing in Mech Knights, as I said in a previous video. It's really easy to mix in stuff like Gursu and Lib and all that stuff as well. As far as the specific archetype, mixing with Odd Eyes, I really like the capability as well. Some of these cards are going to be a pain in your ass to find in real life, because a few of my teammates play Odd Eyes, and it was a huge pain in the ass to try to find some of these cards. But I 100% believe that this could be another variant that you could see pop up when this archetype comes out. So I wanted to talk about it because, well, it's probably the most fun I had while messing around with this archetype. Again, Fenrir adds any of the monsters. Obviously, you have Ogre to be able to add the trap, as we covered in the last video. Unicorn to be able to add the birth or any spell card. Again, remembering that the spell card itself on your opponent's turn can equal a banish out of your opponent's graveyard, which is really, really powerful for control sakes. As far as that's concerned, I think the rest of the cards are kind of self-explanatory. If you've ever played Odd Eyes, you definitely have to have pretty much 3 of everything else, except for the Phantasm Dragon. I don't necessarily think that's a thing that you have to have, but I would at least get 1 to 2 of them. And then Seer, when it comes out, it's an OCG card right now, but it will come out inside of Animation Chronicles, and it definitely will make an impact like so many of those cards from that upcoming set will provide. Again, Phantom Dragon is probably going to be the hardest card to find. I found this one to be a huge pain in my ass, but it is a burn card in time, so I feel like you might want to grab some of that, I guess. But it either is going to burn, be able to help you attack over something. It's just going to equal doing a little bit of shenanigans inside of the archetype, and you just need to have more or as many level 7s as possible. As far as Revolution Dragon, it really combos off well with the Seer, which we will touch on in a combo coming up. Not necessarily a combo, just really a random hand that I kind of picked out. And then mixing in a lot of this other stuff, which basically the Revolution Dragon mixing with the Seer to be able to be used multiple times. You can use up to 4 in a turn or more. You know, it's absolutely crazy. Performapal Gertrude, I'm not sure about this card yet. I'm probably gonna cut it just because any of these combos I've been messing around with, I kind of don't necessarily feel like it's the most optimal thing ever, but it definitely is something that you have to consider, simply because it can loop cards around and return them back to your hand, which you have to definitely take into consideration. I don't think it's absolutely necessary, but it's something you have to take into consideration if you're planning on playing a deck like this, because Odd Eyes being as popular as it is, I would expect to see this somewhere, somehow, and some way. As far as some of these other cards, again, Seer being easily one of the most broken cards in Animation Chronicles. As far as Skullcrobat Joker being also an additionally powerful card, that's a clear 3 of because of its sheer versatility to be able to mix right into this archetype and add any of these cards. Obviously with Pendulum Graph Dragon being able to blow your opponent out on their turn and give yourself another scale while also burning them each time that they special summon, while also being able to negate a spell, is something really, really potent that you will want to have on your end board. Not super duper focused on the full ritual line of play, because I just don't think that that's necessary in any way, shape, or form. But who knows what's optimal, unless you're like the specific Odd Eyes guy at your locals, then you will clearly be able to shred this list and then be able to find the optimization that you need to inside of a deck like this. Spiral Flame Strike, I think, easily is a 3 of that you would have to have as well, because, well, let's face it, it just does 2 different things each time it's in your hand. The Prepare to go along with the Ogre, when you add it to your hand, you clearly have it a huge advantage. And then obviously with most of the extra deck being the way that it is, I didn't necessarily think you needed Odd Eyes Fusion, but it's a card you probably want to consider as well. Getting in the extra deck, I really just feel like it's pretty self-explanatory and similar, or extraordinarily similar, to what I covered the other day. Obviously, you have to add some of the the Odd Eyes cards like Raging Dragon that you can just smack your opponent upside the head and blow them out. The Vortex, obviously, the Absolute Dragon to get to that. Extending into stuff like Arsenal Falcon could also be a thing if you wanted to maybe drop a barrier statue on people. I mean, if it's that serious, you know, hey, it is what it is. But definitely I could see that being an inboard after you've already set your whole board up. Going into that, the Hidden Arsenal guy, the Raid Raptor guy, and then being able to blow them completely out of the water with a wind barrier statue is just something interesting. Shout out to Michael with the Doom Rider. It's a really, really powerful card that I didn't quite understand until I saw him playing his version of Dragon Link. But again, getting into the combos, this fun hand is basically just showing the sheer versatility of the deck. Revolution Dragon literally is anybody pretty much in this archetype. This card was really, really sought after at first, and then it just like completely vanished off the face of the map. You can probably grab them really easily if you like Odd Eyes, or if you're planning on playing this deck mixed with the Kshatri-La archetype. But I definitely feel like essentially starting off the combo the same way. Nothing really changes as far as using most of the Kshatri-La stuff. It's just going to be able to add cards. Fenrir is going to add a monster. Unicorn's going to add a spell. Ogre's going to add a trap. The fun comes in here where Seer, the new card that will come out in Animation Chronicles, can literally loop cards on and off the field. Now, clearly, guys, if you have multiple Revolution Dragons, then you're going to have a max of about 4 of these in your hand, and you can literally set out to add your entire deck in whatever capacity that you want. Obviously, you would have to fear a card like Droll, but being able to continuously pitch, pay 500, and then add whatever Odd Eyes card that you basically want out of your deck to be able to add to your inboard and set up your scales is just really, really good and obvious 3 of in the deck, and going to easily set up a card like Pendulum Graph. Odd Eyes isn't necessarily meta in any way, shape, or form, but it definitely always has cheeky plays that can definitely stun your opponent. I'm not going to say it can win any big event, but it could shock a regional. It could dominate a locals for a second until people could really figure it out. But in getting back into the combo, when Seer is Pendulum Summoned, it can A, banish a card and then target a Performer Power Odd Eyes monster in the graveyard and special it, or take a Performer Power Odd Eyes and either dump it into the grave to be able to be pulled back by a Seer later on, or put directly into your extra deck to be Pendulum Summoned maybe, then following turn, or just flat out played around with in the shenanigans that Odd Eyes does. Ending on Shangri-La, as well as the Pendulum Graph, as well as adding a monkey board in the end phase by popping the Odd Eyes in your scale, and then triggering the Arc Pendulum Dragon to be able to special summon out another monster onto the field, pass to your opponent, standby phase, special summon out Fenrir, and literally having all of these interruptions, not necessarily the most powerful board that you've ever seen, but something that can be played or playable for your opponent, such as negating a spell with the Pendulum Graph, giving yourself another scale after it's used on the field. It literally slides back into your scale, and you're good to go for your next turn. So literally it will make itself useful for a long time. And this card is out now, so make sure if you plan on playing this with the Kshatri-La stuff, go grab all this crap now before it like actually matters at the time, or gets hyped up at the time, gets popular for a week, you get gouged out of your money, and then it drops right back down to the floor because it won't actually be relevant. That's literally up to you, I'm just saying. As far as extending though, it's literally the same kind of setup. You have a spell that's an interrupt, the trap if you actually opened up Ogre inside of that hand, and much, much more. Guys, I promise I could drop a video on this archetype, sub-archetype engine every single day, but I'll leave it at that. Let me know what you think about what other variants you want to see down in the comments, and I'll see you next time. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Pegasus out. Kshatri-La.